Good morning. A question for you this morning. What has been the most significant day of your life? The most important day? See, I think these kind of days, they're often the kind of days that you've most prepared for and anticipated and looked forward to and planned for. What has that day been for you? Was it the day that you graduated? Was it your wedding day? The day that your first child was born? Or maybe the day that your fifth child was born? For me, this was June 8th, 2024, the day that I was ordained a priest. It was almost 14 years in the making, years of prayer and preparation and study, all culminating in that day. Maybe you've had this experience where it felt like that day would never come, but then finally it arrived, and all the preparation, all the work and prayers and sweat and tears were worth it. They were all worth it. Today, we celebrate the first Sunday of Advent. Advent means coming. This isn't just the church version of the Christmas shopping season. No, Advent is a time of preparation for what is coming, or more particularly, for who is coming. A little spoiler alert, Jesus comes on Christmas. But am I ready to greet him? Am I prepared? But you might ask, Father, what is there to be prepared for? Sure, a lot of preparation went into his coming on that night in Bethlehem, getting the people of Israel ready and all that. But for us now, he already came. It's good to remember and to celebrate, but he already came, right? Well, there's actually another coming we're preparing for in Advent. Christ's second coming. Because, another spoiler alert, he's coming back. He's not done. In our gospel today, we hear, "And then they will see the Son of Man coming in a cloud with power and great glory." His second coming will not be a silent night. No, he will come in glory to judge the world, the righteous to their eternal reward, and the unrighteous to eternal punishment. And we need to be ready. Be vigilant at all times, he tells us, and pray that you will have the strength. But how do we prepare? Because honestly, that seems very far off, right? The end of the world. It's hard to imagine the end of the world happening anytime soon. But wait, there's more. See, Advent isn't just about being ready for one coming or two comings. No, there's actually a third coming that we are preparing for. There are three comings of Christ. The first coming on Christmas Day, the second coming at the end of time. But then there's this third coming that actually happens in between those other two, when the Lord bursts into our ordinary life and turns it upside down. Like when he showed up on the shore to some fishermen mending their nets, or to a tax collector at the customs booth, or to men and women all throughout history, saints and sinners alike, when the Lord came into their lives, burst into their lives and made his presence, made his love, made his kingdom known in them and through them. Like when he made his presence known to a little middle schooler at a Christian summer camp, who, spoiler alert, was me, when I met him in seventh grade. And that moment, that changed my life forever. See, this third coming, this middle coming, is when the Lord shows up, when he breaks into our ordinary lives, here and now. And that is the coming. That is the coming we need to be most concerned about today. Because it's receiving Christ in this middle coming that prepares us for his return in glory. Advent is a time each year where we need to be reminded. We need to be reminded that we need to be ready for his coming now, today. That we need to have an urgency. That Christ's coming isn't just something we read to children. It's not just a story that we read to children, but it's a story of our lives here and now, today. Are you preparing for the Lord to come into your life today, right now? The Lord says in Revelation, "Behold, I stand at the door and knock." Are we ready to answer, or are we asleep? Christ has a stern warning for us in today's gospel. Beware that your hearts do not become drowsy from carousing and drunkenness and from the anxieties of daily life, that day catch you off guard, that day catch you by surprise like a trap. Too many hearts today are drowsy. Our world today is drowsy. Our world today is almost entirely asleep, sound asleep, just like they were on that first Christmas Eve. And we need to honestly ask ourselves, how have I allowed my heart to grow drowsy? I don't know about you, but I often find myself getting caught up in those anxieties of daily life. Those countless little things that add up into big things until another day is gone, another week is gone, another year is gone, and my heart is still asleep. And I don't even hear the Lord knocking at the door. How many of us are just sleepwalking through life, frittering away our time on pointless nothings, on our phones, on the latest news story, the latest trend, on drink, on video games, on comfort, on pleasure, wasting the precious, irreplaceable moments of our lives? And what happens when we stay asleep? I just drift through another day without noticing the knock on the door, without hearing the voice of the Lord, the voice of the God who loved me into existence, who formed me out of the dust of the earth, who breathed into my life his breath. Wake up. This Advent is a time to wake up, to shake off the drowsiness of our hearts, to rise from our spiritual apathy and do the things that we know we should do. Ask yourself, what am I assuming I will have time to do later? If I knew the day when he was going to show up, if I knew the day that he was going to come, what would I do before then? What have I been putting off? Going to confession? Kicking that bad habit? Getting help? Reconciling with a family member or friend? Making things right with your spouse? Getting off the couch and spending time with your kids? Making time for prayer and reading the scriptures, serving those in need, getting baptized, opening the door of your heart to the one who loves you more than anything. If you're not going to do it now, when are you going to do it? Now is the time. This Advent is the time. Wake up. Take seriously this season as a time of preparation because Christ is coming. He stands at the door. Those moments I talked about in the beginning, they didn't happen by accident. They didn't catch you by surprise. My ordination, your wedding, you didn't just wake up one day and realize, oh, I'm getting married today. Does anybody have a suit I could use? No, they happened because you were prepared, because you were ready, because you were willing to forego comfort and ease and put in some work and prayers and sweat and tears. And those moments, they were worth it. They were worth every minute of preparation. But sometimes the most significant moments do catch us by surprise. We don't like to think about it very often, but we all have a moment coming up that will be our most significant moment in the eternal scope of things. And will we be prepared or will it catch us by surprise? My junior year of college, one of the guys that I lifted weights with, his name was Eric. And one day, during a workout, he felt a little bit off. An hour later, he collapsed. He had a brain aneurysm and he ended up passing away the next day. Around 5 years ago, this weekend actually, I was living in Duluth, Minnesota. It was on a Sunday morning, a snowy Sunday morning, and the Bishop of Duluth, Bishop Serba, was crossing the parking lot to go to Mass, and he had a heart attack and died. See, we all know people who've passed suddenly, but these two men, I just recall, as people talked about them, especially about Eric, being only 20 years old, they kept saying constantly, he was ready to go. He was ready to go. He was living his life in such a way that he was prepared. He was living each day close to the Lord, close to the sacraments. He could not have known that his day was coming, and yet he was prepared. Will the same be said about me and about you? Will I be ready? Will I be prepared? Because on that day at the end of our lives, whenever that comes, when we stand before the Lord, the just judge, and we hope we hear him say, well done, good and faithful servant. On that day, all of the preparation, all of the work and the prayers and the sweat and the tears will have been worth it. Wake up. This Advent is a time to prepare for his coming, to open the door of our hearts to him. I want to challenge you. Commit to one particular thing this Advent to rouse yourself from your drowsiness. Maybe that means waking up a few minutes earlier to pray each morning. Maybe that means giving up something that you know makes you drowsy, whether that be social media or alcohol, Netflix. Or maybe that means reading the scriptures each day. If you read one chapter of the Gospel of Luke each day, you would end on Christmas Eve. Do something. How will you prepare for the Lord's coming this Advent? How will you prepare? How will you be ready for his coming? Because he is standing at the door. He is at the door. And so today, here in this Mass, invite him in. Invite the King of the universe, invite the God who formed you out of the dust of the earth, invite him in, that you will be ready to receive him when he comes again.